There's no sound in nature that heralds the onset of fall in the hunting seasons like the honk of the Canada goose. Joining me on the Game Gourmet today are a pair of successful goose hunters from the Carver Sportsmen's Club Young Adult Hunt programs, Scott Bauer and Taylor Ragazzini. Welcome to the Game Gourmet, boys.
Thanks for having us, Paul.
I bet you didn't know that you were going to become TV stars when you signed on to the youth hunting program.
Nope.
I'd like to assure you that the stigma of your participation in this show will wear off. In about 30 years, nobody will ever know you were in the program. I had the pleasure of hunting with Tyler and Scott on consecutive Saturdays in January that were polar opposites in temperature. One Saturday we hunted, we got out of the truck, how cold was it?
About 6 below.
6 below, and the following Saturday?
50.
About 50 degrees. Polar opposites in temperature, and we came back with a stringer full of ducks, which is a nice bonus for any hunters that go out in the field at any time. We've had recent stories about the fate of waterfowlers in Massachusetts who took unnecessary risks or who were ill prepared for the frigid temperatures of an Arctic blast in the New England winter. That's the globe today, and you see duck hunting frigid waters is a dangerous mix. Our hunters took no such risks. They were well prepared with properly layered clothing with an outer layer designed to keep the waters in the marsh where it belongs. That's one of the things that the article in the Globe points out, that one of the real problems in the winters in New England is when you get water, if you get dumped in the water, you get water in you. We took special precautions and hunted in an area of the marsh that we could get to by foot. We're only actually about, what, a quarter mile from the truck? Yeah. So that at any time, if we had been in a dangerous situation, we could have got ourselves out reasonably quickly. The other thing we did that you need to be able to do is you need to be able to know the time of the tides. You need to time your hunt coincident with the tides that you can exit the marsh. And you also need to know the height of the tides. How high is that tide going to be? Can you get on and off the marsh in time to make your exit to the truck safely and not getting wet? I'd like to spend a minute and talk about the perceptions of the general public on some things like the effective range of shotguns that we use. You know, I see people who tend to have the perception that hunters can shoot geese that are a mile high or 2 or 3 telephone pole lengths away, and they think we just point our guns and the geese dissolve on the ground, we go pick them up, and we leave with a stringer full of geese. But that's not true at all, is it?
Nope.
What do you guys, what's the effective range? How close to you do you need to get waterfowl in order to effectively harvest them?
We basically wait till they're 40 yards in front of us, but you can do it at like 70 yards, but it's not as effective.
Right. I was impressed last Saturday when the geese were coming over you guys, and I kept saying to myself, when are they going to shoot? When are they going to shoot? And you waited until the geese were right on top of you. They were, my estimate was about a good 30 yards away from you, no further. And the geese dropped on the deck, and they were done right away. And that's an effective, important tool to use, is to know what your effective range is, and what's the most important skill for any waterfowler?
To identify the bird.
Identify the birds.
And knowing when not to shoot.
Great, Scott. Knowing when not to shoot. When it's time to use your call to get the birds in range, to let the birds go by you and use the call to get them to come back within effective range so you can harvest them quickly and cleanly. That's great. We have in Massachusetts really a very complex web of rules and regulations that apply to us as duck hunters. Requirements for licensure. You guys take for a minute and share with the public what licenses you have to have in order to hunt ducks in Massachusetts?
You need a state, federal waterfowl stamp, and then you need a state waterfowl stamp and a federal waterfowl stamp.
Right.
And you need your own hunting license.
Right. And you need, the other license that you need is your gun license, your firearms ID card. So you need Massachusetts hunting license, you need a federal waterfowl stamp, which you get at the post office, you need a state duck stamp, and you need a HIP number before you can even set foot in the fields. The other thing you have to do, and these boys have both done it, is you have to take what?
Hunter Ed course.
Hunter Ed course. And the Hunter Ed course allows you to be effectively trained in how to be safe in the field and to hunt with other people with respect to landowners and property owners and the general public. And those are important. I know the complexity of a lot of government regulations is subject to a lot of scorn by a lot of people. On today's menu is the Canada Goose, and that's a perfect example of the complex web of regulations that we have here in Massachusetts. But the Canada Goose is really a conservation success story, isn't it? You were out, you didn't see any shortage of geese and ducks. The numbers have recovered to the point where they're actually a problem in areas. Tyler, you do football in Carver. Have you ever hunted on a field that's covered with goose dung?
Well, I've been on parks that have it, though.
Right. Parks, fields, covered with goose dung because we have a population of resident geese in Massachusetts that's become to the point of almost being a nuisance. The other end of the goose population is the migratory birds. These are the birds you hear in early September, in late September, when they're flying through our area on the way south. The regulations for Canada goose are complicated and vary by time of the year, and there's a good solid reason for that. We use a North American conservation model when we're setting seasons for wildlife, like geese and ducks. The seasons in Massachusetts are broken up into 3 segments. The early Canada goose season, which starts in early September and goes towards usually about the 3rd week of September, is designed to target the resident goose population. It's timed at such a time that the migrators are not in the area yet. They haven't actually arrived. The limit for the early Canada goose season is what? You remember? Good, Scott. Scott remembers his regulations. I'll tell you, there's a lot of adult hunters that can't tell you that off the top of their head, so that's very good. It's 5 Canada geese because it's targeting resident populations that we want to lower. In October, when the regular duck season starts, what does the limit go down to?
2.
2, great. And it stays 2 through mid-January. The reason for that is migratory Canada geese are in the area during that time period. They don't want to have that population go down. So they reduce the limit to 2. So they're not taking as many migratory geese. Then in January, in late January through mid-February, when the migrators are through the area, the limits go back up to what? 7. And they stay that through mid-February when the season's ended. That way what's happening is we're targeting resident geese populations that we want to lower, and we're favoring the migratory birds that we want to actually have that population increase. The science of game management recognizes the difference, and that's why we have the complicated seasons that we have. We don't want to suffer overpopulation of geese on the athletic fields. That bumps into what we call the cultural carrying capacity of the land, that which human beings are willing to tolerate. We don't want to get these birds into an area of public perception that causes disdain. You guys have done a great job learning your duck and waterfowl identification. You've got a long way to go. Identifying waterfowl on the fly is a very difficult task, and it takes a lifetime commitment to learn. When young people are hunting, the other thing that I'd like to stress is that when young people are hunting with adults, they're not hunting for other things like drugs. Drugs and alcohol have become a real problem in our society, and they're in a problem because people don't have enough to do. One of the guys in the shop where I work was complaining the other day. He doesn't like the winter time period because there's nothing to do. Can you imagine? There's nothing to do in the winter, is there? When it's 7 below, you have nothing to do but sit in your house. What were you guys doing when it was 7 below? Hunting and having a ball at it and learning about game populations and being able to do things like we're doing today, game cooking. We're about ready. We've probably won out our welcome with the people that, like me, I'm getting ready to eat. I want you to be able to choose menus and things that show off the game that you're doing. Scott, you made a great start in working with your family. I know you harvested your first deer this year with Mike Jones from the Carver Sportsmen'c Club. If anybody wants to see pictures of those, you can go on carversportsman.com and see the pictures of Scott with his first deer and Tyler and Scott with their Canada geese from their hunt. I know Tyler hunts with his dad. His dad was with us when we got the Canada geese. His dad would like to have been here today, but he's on fulfilling his military obligations, and would like to thank him for his service. important that we always recognize the contributions of the military people among us. And now it's time for us to begin the preparation of a goose quesadilla. This recipe is great with geese. We served 45 people at the last Hunter Ed program with just 2 Canada geese. It is also great with elk. When we were up hunting this fall with my dad up in Maine, there were only 2 of us, so I took up a package of elk meat with me, and we made elk quesadillas right at the hunting camp. Doesn't require any specialized equipment, just a little bit of time, and when you're sitting up there with your dad when he's in his late 80s, you learn to value that time. And I know throughout my life, I've spent more time hunting with my dad than most people ever spend with their dads, and that's a valuable thing that you'll look back on in future years and say that's a great thing. The other thing that you can use, Scott, you've got some venison, and you could use venison in this recipe. What would you call that?
Venison quesadillas?
No, I'd call it a quesadilla. And on that note, we're going to adjourn to the kitchen where we can start the preparation of our goose quesadilla. Okay, we're over in the kitchen of the Carver Sportsmen's Club, and we're going to show off some of the ingredients that we're going to use today on our goose quesadilla. And remember, this recipe works just fine with other game meats. The first thing that we're going to need some lettuce. I like to use iceberg lettuce because that's going to be part of the cool part of the quesadilla. Nice ripe tomatoes, sweet onions. Then I use a variety of peppers. I like to use your standard green bell pepper, red pepper, orange pepper, your Italian peppers, which are great fried up, and a yellow pepper. We get a little bit of sweetness from the yellow and the red pepper. We're going to dice up the tomatoes. We're going to dice up the onions. We're going to use a little bit of garlic when we go to first cook the goose breasts. We've got some jalapeno peppers. You can add those to your taste. Some people like your quesadillas hotter than other people. I tend to like them a little on the mild side, not overwhelming. One of the things you've got to be careful of with game is not to overpower the taste of it. One of the things that I don't do with my quesadillas is I don't use your typical quesadilla type sauce, your Mexican sauce, because it'll overpower the quesadillas. I like to use the same recipe when we cook it that we use for the Cape Cod Idas, and I'm going to let Tyler give you the marinade recipe for our goose breasts since they're his geese.
Okay, so we have 2 breasts from the goose, and they're marinated in 1 cup of orange juice and 3 tablespoons of Cajun spices.
That's McCormick's McCormick spices. McCormick's, what's the name of it?
Just a Perfect Pinch Cajun.
Perfect Pinch Cajun spices. Those make a really nice marinade. They smell really great when they're in the refrigerator marinating overnight. You should put them, because it's orange juice, you should put them in a glass or ceramic dish, not a metal dish. One of the things that we're going to do, it's going to be really important when we take those goose breasts out of the marinade, we're going to dry them, towel dry them completely, then we're going to let them air dry for about 20 minutes. One of the reasons that we do this is when you go to sear game meat, you don't want any moisture in the pan at all. You're gonna put it in a hot pan. You're gonna sear it off for a couple of minutes on each side. Then you're gonna put it in the oven. You don't want moisture in there because it's going to turn the meat gray, and you're not going to get a nice sear. So that's why we need to get all the moisture out of the breast. Towel them off with paper towels and let them set out to air dry for 20 or 30 minutes before you do. Just do that at the early part of the game preparations, and you'll be home free. The other ingredients that we're going to have sour cream. We're going to have soft flour tortillas. We're going to have some nice fresh limes. It is a Mexican dish after all. That's going to add a degree of freshness to the preparation of the quesadilla. And fresh chopped cilantro. I like a lot of cilantro. I like a lot of fresh herbs in any of my game recipes because it adds it adds a lot of flavor to the dish, and it makes it kind of special. We are now going to take a few minutes. Going to go back and we're going to finish prepping the peppers. We're going to come back and actually start the cooking of the quesadilla. Now we're ready to start sauteing the vegetables. The boys have done a good job with their prep. We've got the vegetables all mixed up and ready to stir fry. The onions and the full variety of peppers and a little bit of garlic, and we're going to do a quick stir fry. You want your vegetable mixtures slightly on the crisp side. Part of the nice part about a quesadilla is you don't want to overcook the vegetables, but you do want the onions. You want to develop the sweetness that's in the onion itself. You always use the sweeter onions than the yellow onions. Use the white onions that are sweet, or the Vidalia onions if you can get them that time of year. So what we're going to do is we're going to stir fry them for a few minutes, and once they're done, we're going to start getting ready to assemble the quesadilla. But we're going to cook. We've got the vegetables cooked. We've put a couple of cans of black beans in some water to heat them up. I want all of the ingredients for the hot side of the quesadilla warmed up so that we don't have to overcook it in the oven. So that's what we're going to do now. We're taking out the peppers and the onions after a few minutes, so they're just on the crisp side, and they'll be done perfect. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to set that aside, and Tyler has done an excellent job preparing the goose breasts. They're nice and dry, they've air dried, and they're ready to go in the pan. We're going to do some quick preparation. I always use a bit of the tenderloin that's left over to tell if my pan is at the right heat level. So I'm going to put the pan on. You don't want to overcrowd the pan. You want your pan hot before the meat goes into it. That way you get a nice crisp sear, and then you're going to put it a couple minutes aside for the sear till it develops a nice crust on it. It'll look like a nice piece of steak. Then you're going to turn it over, do the second side, and then you're going to use one of the most important tools that we have in the kitchen of any game gourmet is the temperature probe, because you can't overcook game. This goose breast wants to be cooked to about 130 degrees, no more. If you overcook goose, it will taste horrible. It will taste like a livery taste. That's a perfect indication that you've overcooked it. You need to have that waterfowl on the rare side. 130 degrees is just about perfect. You can get away with overcooking beef and domestic animals. You can't do the same thing with your waterfowl. So we're going to let the you can also usually tell by the shimmer in your pan when you put the olive oil in it that oil should be nice and loose, and it should be kind of shimmering before it goes in. When your meat hits the pan, it should sizzle. You've got to do that right. So we're going to give it another minute to heat up before we get it in. You don't want to burn it, but you need to make sure that you get a good sizzle. I've got a couple of tongs here that we can. And you hear that sizzle when I put it in there? Perfect. You heard that sizzle? That goose breast is ready to go in. So I dropped a nice dry goose breast that Tyler has prepared, and we're going to do one at a time because of the size of the pan. So I need to get about 2 minutes aside, and we'll try to use a cell phone to get that, but you can hear the sizzling on the goose. Now when you pick it up and turn it over, it's going to be perfect. The reason you can't finish this in the pan is the thickness of the goose breast is such that you will undercook the inside, overcook the outside. Put it in the 400-degree oven after you're done with the sear is going to give you a perfect cook. So we're about 40 seconds into it. So we're about halfway to the first side, and we'll flip it over, give it 2 minutes on the next side, and we'll be in good shape for the first breast. And that's going to go nice and lonely on that pan, or we're going to go in the oven when we're done. Nice sear on that side. That's a much thinner piece, so it's apt to overcook. One of the things that you can't do in a lot of these recipes, and I'll warn Scott, because he likes to help cook himself. If you follow the recipes for domestic product, you'll ruin your game birds. You can't cut these breasts and then cook them, or they will overcook. That's why I do it this way. The recipe books don't tell you that, but experience will. A nice goose breast of this size is ready. There's our 2-minute mark. And you can see a nice sear on this side. Not burnt, but a nice crisp sear. And what that does, it also tends to seal it. If you cut that goose breast into slices first, it'll be like shoe leather when you go to eat it. This way, when we take it out of the oven, we're going to slice it. You're going to get a nice, rare inside goose breast. We can get a good shot of the goose sitting there in the pan. Takes a little bit of experience when you're working with a different stove. I'm used to cooking my whole stove at home. I mark my cookbooks of which number to turn it to. Again, we're about 1 minute into this side. We need another minute. Then we're going to start. We're going to put it in the oven. We're going to put it in the oven until it comes up to 130 degrees on the nose. Then we're going to take it out of the oven and we're going to let it rest for a few minutes while we're doing the assembly of the rest of the quesadilla and getting that ready. We'll get about another 50 seconds. I don't want to overcook that small piece. Letting that bird rest after you cook it redistributes the juices into the meat itself. If you follow America's Test Kitchen, they'll tell you that the fibers in meat tends to tense up as they cook. And what that does is let me steal this, is it drives the juices out of the meat itself. And if you let it rest for a few minutes, up to 5, even 10 minutes, those juices will go back into the, okay? So we've got our first breast done. I'm going to move the frying pan off the stove. We're going to take that breast and we're going to put it into the oven with the temperature probe inserted squarely in the middle. .400-degree oven. For how long? How long do I put that in?
Till it's 130.
Perfect answer. Till it's 130 degrees. Right now, it's running at about 87 degrees. That's the perfect answer because with game, it's very difficult to try to predict how long it's going to take. We're going to take it out of the oven when it's done. So it'll come up and I've got a temperature alarm set on this so that we can take it out when it's the perfect temperature. And if you guys can put that over there with the rest of the ingredients. What we're going to do now is we're going to get our area where the food is ready to go, all prepped and ready for assembly. And hopefully that'll give us, once we start, things are going to go right along. Okay, you can hear that goose breast is puffed up a little bit now. And you can hear it sizzling in the oven. And we just have to have the patience now to wait till it comes up to the right temperature. Right now it's at about 120 degrees. It's going to go to 121. When you start, the temperature rise in the meat starts off slow and it increases rapidly, so you have to be ready. In order to help us, I've set the temperature alarm on the digital thermometer, so it should sing out when it gets to the right temperature. So we just got to wait another 8 degrees. And that'll come up very shortly. Then we're going to let it rest for 5 or 10 minutes while we cook the other breast. Do it one at a time to give myself a little bit extra leeway. And it never hurts to rest the meat a little bit longer. So we're at 123 degrees now. That's a lot hotter than it was when we were down in Barnstable. Can I start eating now? You got to resist the temptation to start eating too soon. We're up to 125 degrees. We're going to trust our thermometer to get us to the right. That's the hardest thing for me, is having to rely on the trust. If you were a professional chef, you'd be able to judge by touching the meat and see how it responds to your touch, how well done it is. But if you're not a professional chef, don't try that. Go by the temperature. We're at 127 degrees, so we should hear the alarm go off at any time. 128. We can smell that goose cooking.
It smells so good.
It does. Yeah. It does. It smells awesome. That Cajun spice is just tremendous in the refrigerator, even when it's marinating.
Yeah.
So
awesome smell.
There's our alarm. That can only mean one thing.
It's done.
Your goose is cooked. You had that one coming.
Oh, it looks so good.
Okay. There's the goose breast. Perfect temperature. Ready for us to let it rest. Well, we do the other one. And I'll show you a very nearly perfectly cooked goose breast.
Looks like steak.
Right. Now, we're going to put a foil tent over it. That breast now will actually come up a little bit higher in temperature because it's rising and it isn't actually done cooking yet. So we've got most of the way done, and now we have to have a little bit of patience while we rest the bird, and hopefully everything come out perfect. You can see again, we do the second one. You can see, Scott, if you come over and take a look, Scott and Tyler, you want to see the viscosity of that oil has changed quite a bit. It's more like water now.
Yeah.
That means it's coming up to temperature, and it'll shimmer a little bit when you do that. The acid test is whether it's hot enough. Is that it's almost there, not quite. You hear the last one sizzle real good.
Yeah.
This one, it's almost there, but needs another minute or two. And you don't want to throw it in with the oil under temperature. That's not a good thing because the meat will tend to get gray instead of that nice crust on it. So you have to have a little bit of patience. There you go. You can hear the sizzle. That means it's ready. And there, Taylor did a nice job cleaning that. That's, by the way, a goose is a very large bird. Tyler's goose was a big bird. It wasn't a small goose. It was a nice sized bird. But that's all the meat you get out of them because they have a very big body cavity. They have a very big body cavity on a goose. So you have to make allowances for that. One goose doesn't feed 10 people. It feeds a few people. And if they're hogs like me, it probably only feeds one. Brian, if you want to clean that cutting board off, I'll need either that or that little plastic one there would be good. When I go to slice the goose breast, I can use that. The great thing about using game birds this way, and I've said it over and over again on the show, people don't see it and say, oh, it's a bird. They don't even know. It's a quesadilla to them. It reduces it to a quesadilla, which is good. We got another minute on this side. I love this aluminum pan, but I've had too many instances where I inadvertently reach out and grab the handle. I like to cook the goose, not myself. There's that small piece, we can turn that over. We've been about 2 minutes on this side, just about, not quite. But these are big breasts. That's probably, how thick would you say that is in inches?
Inch and a half.
Inch and a half? Yeah, you said 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, in someplace between an inch and a half and 2. That's why we finish it off in the oven. That way we're not overcooking the outside of it. And then it does give you, there we go, 2 minutes, the other side. And you can see, even right there, you can start to see you can still see the red on the part that's like a quarter of an inch under. And you've got to be able to cook that all the way through to 130 degrees. And I go right to the times on these things. I don't fool around. If it says 2 minutes, I use 2 minutes. In game cooking, the worst thing you can do is overcook. It just doesn't have the fat in the meat in order to generate a lot of juices. So you got to preserve what it has. I'm starving.
Why? Because it smells so good.
Right. Well, this is a recipe that doesn't take as long to do when you're down here at the club doing a film as it does to do at home. You can get right at it and get this thing done in under an hour. That's the great thing. We've got some other recipes that we've used. Scott, you tried one of my favorites on the last duck you got. What was it?
I took a duck breast and I just cooked it in a little bit of olive oil, peppers, and onions.
Yep. What else did we do with it? We did one.
The duck ragoons.
Duck rangoons. Awesome. Duck rangoons, a fantastic recipe. Easy to make, quick. We'll do a show with duck wontons in it, and we'll also probably do the same episode, a sweet and sour duck, which is nice too. I have come over the years to appreciate the fact that you can't treat game the same as you treat other meats. Stir frying thin pieces of duck is a recipe for disaster. It's going to be done this way when we do it.
Black duck.
Okay, that is now ready to venture back into the oven with my handy dandy meat thermometer in it. I'm going to try not to burn myself. The one thing that you can't control when you're talking about game is you can't control the age of the game. You can't really know that. That's one of the things about geese. They tend to live a long time, and you can't control that. You can't really know what it is when you get them. The goose that we happened to get earlier this year that was we used at the Hunter Ed course was a nice young goose, and they were perfect. So we'll see how well Tyler did. See if he did as good as Scott did. Your goose was good when you got it done?
Excellent.
Excellent. Good. Okay, we're at 96 degrees. We're starting off, and that's about what the other one was. So now we just have to be patient. So while we're being patient, let's cook ourselves up some tortillas. What we're going to do, this is the base of the quesadilla itself, and we want to get this, we want to take that flour tortilla and just cook it for a minute or two each side to warm it up and to kind of toast it up. I use a nice soft quesadilla shell or taco shell, and these happen to be flour. So we'll pick one up, a little bit of olive oil in the pan, and we're just going to heat it up and put it on this plate, and we're going to start building them up. You'll be needing that. Flour tortillas will kind of relax a little bit and get nice and soft when you put them in the pan. But you don't want them soaked with oil either. So you just want enough oil to keep them from sticking. And you can see now it's starting to bubble up a little bit. That's just about perfect. Get a little bit of brown on the edges that hit. Okay, now what I want you to do, you guys are going to take and put some black beans on that. Go ahead, don't be bashful. You got that hat for a reason. Probably about 2 spoonfuls. All right, now spread them out nice and even. That's right, all the way around. Now, we made you wash your hands for a reason. Now grab that cheese and put some on the beans. Our second goose breast is up to 108 degrees already. You guys didn't come here not to work, you know. Okay. You can put a little bit more cheese right out around to the edge. And the next thing you're going to do for me is take some of that pepper mixture and put that on. So you're going to do the same thing with that. And we're going to keep repeating this until we get it right.
You do the peppers, I'll do the beans.
We're at 114 degrees on the goose. By the way, what's more than one Canada goose is called what?
Geese?
Geese? No, people call them Canadian geese, don't they? That's not proper. They're not from Canada. It's a species. It's a species of goose. The other goose that tends to come through this area periodically here is, you guys know what it is? Snow geese. You'll see those very occasionally in this portion of the flyway. They happen to be, there you go, that's perfect right there. They happen to be very overabundant in the tundra, and they are actually eating themselves out of house and home up there in the North Country. The limit on snow geese is up to 30 a day because they're trying to get the snow goose population under control. They're actually eating the tundra and destroying it. Okay, we're up to 122 degrees on the second goose breast. Our first one is resting. Good. And I'm going to sleep. Okay, there you go. I don't know if we should let Ron Warwick eat today or not. He did the taping with us at Mamma Mia's and didn't get to eat. And they've never let me hear the end of it. We're up to 126 degrees.
Him and Roger.
Yes, and Roger, that's right. Actually, it wasn't. Ronnie didn't give me anywhere near as hard a time as Roger did. Roger hasn't forgiven me yet. Okay, we're at 128 degrees. When we take the second goose breast out, we're going to put that in. Okay, what's that mean?
Goose is done.
The goose is cooked. And what I'm going to do is take the quesadillas as they've been assembled with the black beans, the Mexican cheese, and the onion and pepper mixture and put it in the oven to melt the cheese. Okay. That's going to go under there. And Okay, now I've got a cutting board over here, so if you guys can make room for me, what I'm going to do is take the first goose breast, and hopefully I don't drop it, and we're going to cut that. If you can shut that door. We don't want our goose breast. Okay. Now, when you slice a goose breast, you're not going to slice it the long way. You're going to slice it across the grain. That's going to tend to make the meat more tender and more juicy and more flavorful. And you want to slice this between a 1/16 and an 1/8 of an inch across. And as you can tell, my experience as a game cook, what do we got in the center? Nice red, medium rare cook on the goose. It's done perfectly. And again, not my skill, it's the skill of the thermometer. You have to know who to believe. And you can tell when you slice it, you see the juice coming out of there? That isn't dry at all. The only thing I've got to be careful of is that I move fast enough so that we don't overcook our tortillas in the oven. Tyler, there's only one thing we got to make sure we do today. Your father's off on his military service, and he's got to get some of this. Because after all, we made him trek 1.5 miles to get it. Okay, we're pretty close. Another minute or two. Ronnie, if you can get a shot with the camera, you're going to see the goose breast. Very well done. Not well done. Done well, I guess, is the best term for it. And again, being smart enough. Okay, guys. Now we got an assembly job. Okay, we've got the hot stuff on there. A little bit of lettuce on top of that. Top of each one, not a whole. Yeah, that's about right. About like that. Okay, good. Okay, same thing, about that much. Spread it out good. Now take some tomato. Go ahead, Scott. You're up. Tyler, you can grab the cilantro next. One of my favorites is cilantro. It has a nice, it's the herb that gives this thing a nice flavor and texture. Go ahead. How much? Keep going, right there. Okay, you want it like just about like that. These are actually done all to taste. There's no, I can't give you a recipe for it. You use enough of it to whatever your liking is. Okay, Scott, you're going to grab a couple of lime wedges and give each one of those a lime wedgie. Just move it right around. Okay, grab the next one. Okay, good. Lime kind of helps freshen up the taste of this, and this is quite a treat for anybody. Okay, good. Now we got the tomatoes. I'll show you how to do this here. This is your goose. If you didn't tell somebody who didn't know, they would assume that this was venison or a meat or beef. They wouldn't even know it was goose.
Looks like normal steak.
Right, it does. Very much like steak. Now we're going to see if your goose is an old buzzard, a new buzzard. Okay, now we get to adjourn to eat our goose. So you give me a minute. We'll prepare the table, and we'll be ready to eat. All the hard work is done. We're sitting here. We've been out in the field. A nice Saturday in the middle of the winter, going after ducks and Canada geese. My two hunting buddies were successful, and they were fortunate. They were kind to me and didn't point out the fact that I came home with hooded merganser, probably 25% the size of the goose that they got. I like to give them a hard time and say, the inexperienced hunters always go for the slow, fast, fat-moving targets. Us experienced people, we go for the sleek, fast-moving game. It's about the only thing I could do to salvage what was left out of my Saturday. I tell you what, I wouldn't trade the experience for anything in the world. We had a ball. We shared a Saturday with Tyler's dad, and we've had a great experience. So I'm not going to wait another minute. I'm going to have a little sour cream with my quesadilla, and you can put a little salsa on there if you want. And then it's time. It's time to enjoy the fruits of our labor down on a midwinter hunt down on Cape Cod. For me, Cape Cod this time of year it's the best time of year to enjoy the Cape. You don't have the crowds that you have to contend with in the middle of the summer, and you get to be great places down there. The salt marshes of the Cape are great. So, without further ado, Goose Quesadilla.
Really good.
And it's not a difficult recipe. Anybody can do it. It's quick, it's easy, and I haven't had very many people that don't like it. I'd like to thank Dennis Ragazzini for the mile walk he had to go get the geese that happened to drop on the other side of the river. He makes a good hunting dog. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, until we get a new one.
You save on dog biscuits until then.
No, you have to buy him food for lunch.
The freshness of the cilantro and the lettuce and the tomatoes really adds a lot to this dish. You think you'll be going out again and getting some more quesadillas?
Hopefully Monday.
This is a great recipe to do with almost any kind of game, as long as you follow the instructions and not overcooking the meat. Certainly venison, things like elk. You do have to watch out, make sure you don't get any of the steel shot. We no longer use lead in our hunting equipment because lead is a toxin and was winding up poisoning the marshes. We've got that out, and we're using a very effective replacement, which is steel shot. Stay tuned from Carver Sportsman for our 2014 youth turkey hunt, our 2014 youth pheasant hunt. Any young adult age 12 to 18, you have to be 12 on the day of the hunt, and you can't be 18 on the day of the hunt. And you can participate with us. We've had some great times with the youngsters in the crowd. Every one of them has behaved responsibly. We never have any trouble with them, and these two are great examples. So, as always, from the Game Gourmet, when the gunning stops, the Game Gourmet starts right here at CATV.